And good evening, and welcome to this week's edition of the Pete Mezzetti Show. My guest this evening is Department of Revenue Services Commissioner Scott Jackson. Commissioner Jackson, how are you? Welcome.
Doing well. Good to be back, Pete.
Good to see you.
You too.
It's been a while.
Yes, a couple of years.
No, it hasn't been a while.
It's been about 2 years.
I was going to say, last time we were together, you were with another agency, and now you're with Department of Revenue Services. So as DRS Commissioner, what exactly do you do, and what exactly does your department do?
Well, we are the agency charged with the fair enforcement and collection of all of the taxes in the state of Connecticut. So there are about 40 different tax types that we collect. The main ones are personal income tax, sales tax, and then a slew of other types of business taxes. But that's what we do. Our job is to collect those taxes and sort of bank them and send them over to the state controller so that they can be spent on all the things that we expect them to be spent on, the roads, the bridges, the state police, and everything like that. So we are the conduit for those finances that keep the state running on an everyday basis.
And how long have you been with DRS?
I've been with DRS since June 22nd of 2018, although a lot of people in that agency thought that I started earlier, so I was getting a lot of emails as if I were already the commissioner.
Oh boy.
But I was in that transition phase from labor, so trying to wear two hats can be a little bit confusing sometimes. But they're great folks over there, very professional, expert in the collection of tax and the development of tax policy. So they made it easy for me as I walked through the door.
Now, before you were with DRS, you were with Department of Labor, I believe?
Yes, so I was with Department of Labor for about 2.5 years.
Okay.
I was with the Office of Policy and Management. I had a great title there. It was the best. I was Undersecretary for Intergovernmental Policy, Office of Policy and Management, State of Connecticut, which was hard to fit on a business card.
I was going to say, does that fit on a business card?
People couldn't ask me for anything because they had no idea what it meant. But that was a lot of fun.
Nice.
I did that for a little less than a year. And prior to that, I served 3 terms as the mayor of the great town of Hamden, Connecticut.
That's right. Yes, you did. And as you and I were talking before, you and I have known each other for what, 24 and a half years?
Going on 25 years. We've gotten a little bit grayer.
Yes, just a little bit.
Maybe a little bit slower.
Exactly.
But it's always good to see an old friend.
It is always good to see an old friend. So what's going on with DRS? Well,
it's an interesting time, right now specifically.
Mm-hmm.
So we're taping this on Cyber Monday.
Yes.
The big thing that's happening in the tax world is collection of sales tax for online transactions. Mm-hmm. So the state of Connecticut last year put into legislation saying December 1st of 2018, if you are an internet seller and you sell $250,000 or more worth of items via the internet and you have 200 or more transactions in Connecticut, right, then you have to collect and remit sales tax. There was and so that'll probably add, we're sort of conservatively estimating it as sort of a fresh $35 million into the state coffers. I say the number is going to be bigger than that, but at some point you have to start to look at sort of replacement sales. Mm-hmm. Instead of going, to the department store to buy a blender.
Right.
If you still need a blender, if you buy it at the department store or online, it's not new. It's not really new money. So, right. But we think that there's about 35 million of new money that comes in. There was a standard in place since 1992 that you had what's known as an economic nexus in a state in order to collect tax, which means you have to have a physical presence. But that was a lot of states started moving in this direction because online sales are such a big proportion of the total package now, and it was challenged before the U.S. Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court decided on actually the day before I started at DRS that you did not need to have that economic nexus. You didn't need to have a physical presence in the state for the state to collect sales tax. So Connecticut wrote a pretty tight law that's really sort of respectful of the small businesses by making the limits 250,000 and 200. That's a big business if you're doing that type of work in Connecticut. The case I went to the Supreme Court was $100,000 or 100 sales. So ours is far above that threshold. So we feel in pretty good shape that we set out a policy course that's respectful of the difficulty of small businesses and trying to understand all the taxing jurisdictions that they may be selling to, but at the same time doing the right thing for our brick and mortar stores that are here and collecting fairly every day.
Now, how did everything go? Because we just experienced Black Friday a couple days earlier. How'd things go as far as sales tax wise?
So far, sales tax is holding steady. It sort of tracks with the general economy. Mm-hmm. So while consumer confidence is still a little bit shaky, we have seen indications of wage growth and sort of continued decreases in the unemployment rate. So more people have more money to spend, and that's what they're doing. So we're doing well on sales tax. In any given year, $4 to $4.1 million is what comes, $4 to $4.1 billion comes through the door via sales tax, and we're tracking for that right now.
Now, as far as I'm sure that people, as far as sales tax goes, many more people are probably shopping online rather than walking into your local brick and mortar these days.
That's the case. But then there are also a lot of sort of specific efforts. I mean, one of the great things about Connecticut mm-hmm. is just about every place has a downtown. It has a main street. It has some place where the people who live there feel connected, and so they go to great pains to support those businesses. And as sort of a resident of the state, I really appreciate that. Yeah, there's certainly some leakage in terms of other types of businesses. Sears is not around anymore. Toys R Us is not around anymore. A lot of those transactions have moved online, but when it comes right down to the local shops that really serve a core market and really establish themselves as part of a community, those are the ones that as consumers, we really need to support. When they support us, we should support them.
Shopping local, local small business, like one of the major credit card companies does after Black Friday. It's Small Business Saturday. Go in and support all your local businesses. I'm a firm believer of supporting the local business.
Exactly, and it works out on a lot of different levels, mm-hmm. Including property tax is not something we do at Revenue Services. That's a local tax, not a state tax.
Right.
But in terms of maintaining the local property tax base, it's really important that we do everything we can to make sure that these businesses are successful and are able to thrive, so that they can fill those spaces. Downtowns can be vibrant, and property tax revenues continue to come into the municipalities that support them.
Exactly. And with obviously we're in the end of November, beginning of December, and with what's going on in the state of Connecticut, thoughts, feelings?
Do you mean politically?
Yes.
Oh well, this is the interesting time. We have a major transition. Mm-hmm. After 8 years, there are a lot of senior leaders who are taking the opportunity to go and do other things, and so there is a transition team that is in place that is looking at how to staff up in such a way as to be able to manage the priorities of incoming Governor-elect Lamont and Lieutenant Governor Susan Bysowitz. And so they are working hard every day to try to put together what's essentially a jigsaw puzzle. They're recruiting talent, and they're trying to figure out where that talent fits best. And so it can be an arduous process, and one of the things that the voters sort of clearly said was we're looking for someone to come in and kind of shake things up, mm-hmm. And so I think they're going to be sort of consistent with that mindset and bring in some different kinds of people to help run some of these things. Now, that being said, the government is actually sort of a complex animal. And so you still need to have a mix of people who actually know how to get from A to Z and where the pitfalls may be.
Right.
Because it gets very frustrating if you think you can get that far in one shot, but it's really 4 different shots that you have to take independently. So I think they're trying to put together a mix of those folks to make sure that we get to take full advantage of what's really kind of a rising tide. It's a little bit slower here than in other places, maybe a little bit more nascent, but we're Connecticut and we're going to get there.
Exactly. And Governor Lamont gets sworn in, I believe, in January?
In January, right. And so, it'll be sort of all hands on deck for probably the next 4 or 5 weeks with the new administration to get a real solid budget in. The first budget is always a really important one. It really sets out the priorities and the course. And of course, in Connecticut, we do biennial budgets, so it's a 2-year look.
That's right.
In one budget, so it's sort of half your term captured in one document in terms of your priorities and what your people have projected is going to happen over time.
So what else does DRS do that we can inform the people about?
I think the most important thing is to say that we're here to help. Is that we believe we don't believe in just management, we believe in achieving superlatives. So we want to be the best customer service tax collection agency in the country. It's a little bit hard. One of the things it's been said, and sometimes people believe it, sometimes they don't, but the numbers are the numbers. So this is the second agency I've run. In
Right.
both agencies, on the day we met, 24 and a half years ago,
Yes.
both of these agencies had twice as many people as they have now. Yes, so technology is able to pick up some of that operational improvements, process improvements, sort of lean, Six Sigma type efforts to take a process and break it down and say, why does it take so long? Let's cut out some unnecessary steps. Takes care of some of that, but you also at some point need the people to do it. And so one of the things that we're looking at certainly on the customer service side is making sure that our online presence, which is sort of capturing what we call the taxpayer service center, is as robust as it can be. Now, it's kind of funny when I got the call from the governor to go over to DRS. What? Me? Why? And the truth is, there's a secondary small tax office in the state, and it's at Department of Labor. It's the unemployment tax operation. So when the governor saw a tax need, he looked at someone who sort of had an understanding of how taxes work. But I pay my bills on my phone, and so I'm scrolling through my phone that day to pay bills, and Commissioner, Department of Revenue Services is actually one of my payees. So I say, oh, look at this, I'm actually paying myself.
There you go.
But I pay my taxes. But I've used the online taxpayer service center, and it's worked wonderfully. Our systems are old, and in the background we're upgrading our systems, but we really want to drive people to a website that is useful for them, that has the specific information that they need in the moment that they need it, to effectively satisfy their tax obligations, because most people want to.
Would you mind sticking around for another segment?
Certainly.
We'll be right back.
Hey, let's check out this park. Oh, wow, that's really cool. To find a great local park or forest near you, go to discovertheforest.org.
Every day, the people in our community rally in support of United Way as we strive together to make a big impact to change lives in Middlesex County. From our main streets to our institutions, from our neighborhoods to our town halls and our classrooms, we're working with our partners to create a stronger community. It's an inspiring effort, and we invite you to join us. Volunteer, donate, live united.
And welcome back to this week's edition of the Pete Mezzetti Show. Sitting here with DRS Commissioner Scott Jackson. Commissioner Jackson, welcome back.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we were talking before the break about there's a website that people can go to and pay their taxes. It's very informative and very interesting to people. What is the website, and can we maybe open up this segment talking a little bit about the website and exactly what it does?
Certainly. And so what people should do, they shouldn't worry about the specific address. You should just, in your search bar, search CTDRS. And the first thing you see will be our Taxpayer Service Center, where as either a business or an individual, you can remit any taxes that you owe. So the income tax is actually really simple because it starts from, if you do your federal taxes first, it starts from your federal adjusted gross income, and then there are only a couple of lines after that, and it does all the calculations for you, and you can submit it online, and it's very easy. I happen to live around the corner from a Department of Motor Vehicles site. Mm-hmm. And when I take my kids to judo on Saturday mornings, there's a line of people outside waiting for it to open. And when I say a line, I'm talking dozens of people outside in all weather.
Pack a lunch.
And the reality is most of them don't need to be there.
Really?
The reason they're there is because they don't know the services that are available online through the DMV. Mm-hmm. And so I don't want that to happen to us.
No.
Right. So I want to make sure that folks know that most of what they want to do, most of the transactions that they want to pursue, mm-hmm. they can do it online, on their own time, as they see fit. And if we can't, we try to modify, adjust, amend the system as necessary based on what people need. So we actually just converted our website to one that's a little bit more dynamic. And by that I mean it changes the way it displays itself based upon what people are asking for. So if on a given day, the number one topic that people are asking for is, I need help with my individual income tax. Right. Individual income tax jumps up to the top of the list. So it's the first thing they see. And so we've got two different groups who are kind of monitoring those lists to see what people are asking for, so that if we have to make modifications to our system, we can do that, because we want to be responsive to the needs of the residents at all times. I got a letter from the IRS a couple of weeks ago saying that I owed an absurd amount of money. It's the kind of letter that you open and you laugh at, because it can't possibly be true.
Yeah, right.
I don't make that much money. I can't possibly owe this much.
How could this happen?
I didn't know there was a 70% tax bracket on the federal side. So, so I called them, and I was on the phone with them for 3 hours. I cooked dinner, I ate dinner, I did a parent-teacher conference, all while on hold. That's not the type of experience that I want people to have. To the extent that, because you know what, we, like I said earlier, we have half the number of people that we did at one point in time. Right. And so it's very hard to do these things on the phone sometimes, which is why we want to make sure that we provide the best information possible so that people get their answers without having to wait on the phone. Right. We have 3 walk-in centers around the state, actually 4 walk-in centers, Norwich, Bridgeport, Waterbury, and one in the ground floor of our building in Hartford. And I had some paperwork to do this afternoon. So I went down to the walk-in center and sat there and did my paperwork, so I could just sort of keep an ear out as to what was going on. It was pretty quiet today. It'll pick up certainly after the tax filing season starts in January. Yeah. But I was really impressed with the level of care and concern that our people in the walk-in center showed to the individuals they were helping. If it took more than a couple of minutes, they They took them into into a room off the side where they could have sort of very specific conversations without people worrying if people could overhear the transaction or anything like that. It was really a well-run enterprise.
Now, did people know when you were in doing your paperwork, people know who you are?
Well, the people on staff did,
Yeah.
or at least some of them. I haven't
say.
been there that long, and we actually rotated sort of a crop of our newest employees into that area. I think it's important that we give our new employees the broadest base possible in terms of understanding what the citizens need.
Yeah.
So sort of starting them out in areas where they get to have the most amount of customer contact is something that I appreciate. So most of them did. Some of them probably didn't, and I don't think any of the customers did. But I was able to add value at a couple of points in talking to the people who would come and sit next to me as I was filling out my paperwork. Say, no, don't sit here next to me. Go stand right there.
Exactly.
They'll see you and they'll call you right over.
Right.
There's no line. I just happen to be sitting here today.
And you don't know who I am.
No. Even though I did have my badge on, but
okay.
everybody has a badge nowadays.
There you go. Then it says DRS Commissioner.
It might.
Okay.
It might. I'm not entirely sure.
You don't know what it's. It has your name on it.
I know who I am. I don't worry about it.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess there's a couple of initiatives we're going to talk about tonight as well.
Sure. We have several. One of them is, and this will get into the weeds a little bit, but I'll try to keep it high level. The Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, the federal tax law, was intended to reduce taxes. It just doesn't necessarily work that way here in Connecticut because of the $10,000 limit on state and local taxes that you can deduct from your federal taxes. So we've worked out sort of a workaround for a certain segment of the population called a pass-through entity tax. If you're a partner or you're in an S corporation or something like that, we'll actually tax it at the business level because there's no deduction on the business side, only on the individual side. Then you take a credit. So it's a little bit of a complicated workaround, but it takes care of some segment of the population. In the meantime, obviously the state, through Attorney General Jepsen and several other attorneys general, have filed a lawsuit against the act, basically indicating that it's intended to damage certain states, and those states happen to be highly democratic states.
Wow.
So we're working on that. I talked a little bit about sort of our customer service focus.
Yep.
We tried a few years ago, a really sort of energetic effort to try to stop the handoff of calls. If you call, get transferred here, get transferred there, get transferred there. We tried to stop that by creating teams, and it's sort of like a concierge service where the first person you pick up, that is the person who answers all of your questions.
Right.
Really aggressive effort, really well thought out. In reality, it has some unintended consequences, like an erosion potentially of expertise. So you used to get transferred to the expert in excise tax, right?
Yeah.
But now everybody has to know a little bit more about it, which is a great thing. But when you get to that really, really tricky question, you got to have a real expert. So we're kind of reviewing that to see if that makes sense long term, or if we can sort of create a sort of a hybrid effort around that. So that's something that we're doing on the customer service side. In the meantime, we continue to try to streamline our tax laws. When there's a change of administration, most people kind of put together a very narrow legislative package. Mm-hmm. I said, if it's a good idea, let's throw it on the table. So we put together close to 40 different ideas for legislative changes to try to streamline the system and make things clearer and cleaner for the taxpayers.
Wow. Pretty impressive.
Well, you only have so much time to get things done.
Yeah.
And Yeah, from a commissioner standpoint, you know, someone who serves at the will of the governor, when you have a 6-month time horizon, you really have to kind of do your best to hit the ground running.
Exactly. Website for the Department of Revenue Services.
www.ct.gov/DRS.
And people can find all sorts of useful information on
All sorts. It is the second largest website in the state of Connecticut, second only to the Department of Labor.
Aha. Good plug.
Yes, I still have great warm feelings about Department of Labor.
Now, who took over for you when you went to DRS?
Kurt Westby, who so he was deputy commissioner, and he and I started on the same day.
There you go.
And so we decided that we would not kind of break the agency into parts. We would both learn the entire agency.
There you go.
So that everyone could always get an answer if they needed an answer. And so that's one of the reasons I think why the governor asked me to go over to Revenue Service. He said, "You've got a great deputy. He can handle that shop. I need you to go over to DRS."
Exactly. Well, Commissioner Scott Jackson, we're almost out of time. I want to thank you for coming down tonight, and we'll see you soon.
All right. Thank you, Peter.
No problem. On behalf of Scott Jackson, I'm Pete Mezzetti. Thanks, good night, and we'll see you next time.